The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro. Death is not always an easy thing to talk about, but making decisions now could save a lot of hassle, confusion, and frustration for you or your family members down the road. Tonight, we'll learn about planning a funeral, how to get your finances in order, and questions you should ask an estate attorney, and what to do with all of that stuff in your home. Tonight, we're putting preparing for death in focus. Joining us now is estate attorney Scott Mitchell with Saxton and Stump in Lancaster. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
How important is it to do estate planning ahead of time?
Estate planning is very important, and I'll start by covering two pretty simple documents, and that is a general or a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, living will, advance directive. Those are documents that you have in place that says, well, I'm alive. If I'm unable to act for myself, I have a stroke, dementia, car accident, coma, whatever, those are documents where you name somebody to act for you. And those are very important documents to have in place. Everybody should have them in place. They're very simple to do.
Are these things people don't like to talk about or don't like to necessarily have in place?
They are things that some people don't talk about. I often use the analogy, people sometimes say, I'm not going to wash my car because if I wash my car, it's going to rain. So I think some people are like that with their estate planning documents. If they do it, somehow that's going to hasten their death.
Well, but not so really.
No,
Just important.
no.
Makes it a lot easier on people who are around you, your children, your other heirs.
That's correct. That's correct.
What about a will? How do you do that, and what should that include?
So people will sometimes talk to me about, should I do a will or should I do a living trust? A will and a living trust, both those documents are going to say what happens to your assets at death. Everybody should have a will. Some people think, well, if I don't have enough money, I don't need a will, but that's not true. If you have a house, if you have $100,000, whatever, you have $100 million, everybody should have a will, because that's going to say where your assets go at death, and it's going to say who you want to name to do certain things, to be an executor, to be a trustee, those types of things. So everybody should have a will. The living trust issue is a tool in Pennsylvania to avoid probate. In Pennsylvania, probate is very simple. I do trust for clients.
And what is probate before we go any further?
Probate simply means when somebody dies, we take their original will, we take a death certificate, we take a probate petition, we go to the courthouse, we pay a filing fee, and the court issues a document saying this person is appointed as executor. It's a 5-minute meeting, and then whether it's a will or a trust, the process is generally the same. But some people think assets get tied up in probate. That's not really the way it is in Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, some people think they need a living trust where they really don't. Like in some other states, you hear horror stories of probate. Pennsylvania, probate's pretty easy.
What in terms of taxes, how does that play into this?
In Pennsylvania, you have inheritance tax, and it doesn't matter how large or how small the estate is. There's no minimum amount. Spouses and charities are 0%. Children pay a 4.5% tax. Siblings pay a 12% tax, and everybody else pays 15%. So again, it doesn't matter how large or how small the estate is. The federal estate tax only applies if your estate is over, today, approximately $13 million. And that's in effect until the end of 2025. Then we don't know what the law is going to be. But today, most people don't have to worry about federal estate tax unless their estate's over $13 million or a married couple over $26 million.
Who should you make aware of these documents and what your wishes are?
I normally tell people, obviously spouses should be aware of it, and they should make their children aware. This is becoming increasingly important today because the older generation tends to be private, and children don't know where things are. They can't find it if a parent dies or has a health crisis. More and more people now are having online accounts with passwords and usernames that are hidden. So I normally tell people, spouses should know, let your children know, tell them if something happens to me, here's where these documents are being kept. I normally don't tell them to give documents to the children ahead of time because things can change. You might change documents, but I typically tell people, let your family know if something happens to me, here's where everything is being kept.
And again, let people know what your plans are.
Right.
Be transparent about it, because it can be a family dynamic kind of thing, can it?
Right. Fights can start when people die or become disabled. So it's common to have fights start during those times.
But obviously, all of this can make it a lot easier and
Right.
and smoother for folks.
Right. Right. Two other issues I want to mention briefly. Joint accounts and beneficiary designations. These are areas where there are a lot of problems. Married couples normally name each other as joint owners on an asset or a bank account. That's fine. When one dies, it automatically goes to the other as a joint owner. The problem comes when people name children as a joint owner on the account. They really think they're naming the child as a power of attorney. That child then has 100% access to the account. When the parent dies, that child inherits that account as a joint owner, and then the other children often say, well, mom or dad didn't want that child to have the account. They wanted them to be a power of attorney. So watch out naming children as joint owners. If you want to name them as a power of attorney, name them as a power of attorney, not a joint owner.
And I imagine make sure you know who your beneficiaries are that you may have named years ago.
Yes, a lot of people, I still run into this, people think that when I do a will, the will updates all of my beneficiaries, and they might have a beneficiary on a life insurance policy or retirement account from years ago they forgot about. Before they were married, they had additional children born, whatever. When I do wills for clients, I always say we need to look at your beneficiaries and make sure they're up to date, because your beneficiary designation says where that asset goes. Doesn't matter what your will says.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
expertise.
Sure.
Coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll talk with a member of the board of the Funeral Directors Association in Pennsylvania.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is William Spence, a board member of the Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association. He also has a funeral home in Lancaster County. Thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
A topic a lot of people don't necessarily want to talk about. But why is pre-planning important, and what is pre-planning?
Most people think that when you're pre-planning, you have to pre-fund your funeral. That is only part of it. Pre-planning is actually meeting with a funeral director, learning your options, perhaps giving them information that will be important when the time arises, selecting merchandise if that is part of your planning, and actually planning things like, do you want a service? Do you want a public viewing? Do you want a closed casket? Those types of things.
When you say merchandise, you're talking about the coffin? And
caskets, an outer burial container, urns, stationery, jewelry, those types of things.
I was reading that the average cost of a funeral in Pennsylvania is somewhere around $12,000. So that's a lot of money. Why are funerals so expensive?
That is a lot of money. I think funerals are expensive because it's expensive for the funeral home to be in business. We have property, families expected to look a certain way and to be upkept a certain way. We have cars that are expensive. A new hearse is over $100,000. Wow. And then you have other cars that are part of a funeral service, and they're expensive as well. We have professionals who we have employed, and it's reasonable to give them a fair wage. So funerals are just expensive to provide. And part of the expense are things that we're not even charging for. They're the newspapers, the cemetery, death certificates, those things. I have a cremation coming up soon, and it is $2,100 just to open the grave for this cremation.
But yet a cremation can be less costly, can it?
Cremation is typically always less expensive than a traditional funeral. Even if you have a public viewing prior to cremation, it's going to be less expensive because you can use a ceremonial casket. You don't have to purchase one. You do not have the cost of a large burial container, and the cemetery charge would be less because they're not opening a grave that is large.
A ceremonial casket. That's
Yes.
almost like renting a casket, isn't it?
It is.
What are some other ways you can cut costs? I was reading, so you do away with the burial if you have a cremation. You don't need a very expensive casket, and you don't necessarily have to be embalmed, do you?
You do not need to be embalmed in Pennsylvania. If you're having a public viewing, in most cases embalming will be required. But if you're not having a public viewing, embalming is not required if the body can be refrigerated and then buried within 5 hours after refrigeration.
And I also read you don't have to have pricey floral arrangements or pricey burial clothing that people might consider.
That's true. Those are all options that you can decline.
So people can decide what they want. Where should you put this information? Who should you tell about,
Yeah.
your arrangements and what you want?
Yes. Well, it's important to tell your funeral director. We can keep those records on file until they're needed. It's also important to tell your family. It doesn't do a whole lot of good if you do this in a vacuum and you tell your funeral director and you do not tell your family. If they don't know your plans, they may as well not be done.
Again, back to where we started, it's not something people generally love to talk about, is it? How do you,
No.
get people to get the conversation going?
Yeah. It is a difficult thing for people to face their own mortality. But I think that funeral pre-planning is as important for the same reasons that people make a will. They know that at some point they will no longer be living, and the will provides for that day and what happens moving forward. It's the same reason that people need to pre-plan.
We're hearing about a lot of new things, even composting in
Yes.
terms of burial, which I
Yes.
know has gone on in other states.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
It's not a personal thing that I would support. Last count, there were 4 states, mostly on the West Coast, that have legalized composting, or natural organic reduction, they're calling it. I think that there are better ways to have a simple funeral than composting.
And to save land space also, which some
Yeah.
people are concerned
Yes,
about.
yes.
Well, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
you're
sharing
welcome.
your insights. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll talk about some of the financial decisions you need to make.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is Sarah White, who's a financial advisor with the Stonebridge Financial Group. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Susan.
This is definitely an important conversation, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Why is it important to have a financial advisor or a financial planner? Is it for everybody? I think sometimes people think it's for just the wealthy.
It really is. We are not just for the wealthy. We are really the quarterback of your financial life. We help coordinate with a CPA, with an estate attorney, and we really help make sure that you're on track to meet your goals, which could be retirement, college education, all of the above.
Anything you might be saving for.
Yes.
What about helping with the inevitable that none of us likes to talk about, but what
Sure.
happens after you pass on?
Sure. I mean, there are 3 key things I really would focus on. Number 1, start these conversations with your family early and often so that you demystify the financial topic, really. You don't want it to be this big looming thing that you never get around to. 2, make sure that you have a good financial plan, and that involves different account types. There are different advantages for, depending on where you are in life. Often we defer taxes, for example, through our 401k or through a traditional IRA. That's a wonderful thing to do when we're in our peak earning years, but that type of account is really not what you want to leave to your children, because oftentimes your children will be in their peak earning years and therefore their top tax bracket when you pass. And there is a law now that states that any inherited traditional IRA account will have to be spent down in a 10-year time limit. So that means that they will pay a much larger amount of income tax. These are things that we can avoid through planning.
So you might want to change that account before you
Yes,
pass?
or just prioritize spending from that type of account. And you can always add money into the other buckets, such as a Roth or a brokerage account, and leave those to your children. That would be better. A brokerage account, any sort of tax ramifications will get erased on your death because of the stepped-up basis, meaning your children will start fresh the date of your death as far as taxes go. And really, the third thing is, make sure to simplify things. A lot of us, we
Have accounts all over the place, or
we
a lot of
do.
different
I mean,
accounts?
that's just part of life, right? We go from, people change jobs, we leave our 401k behind, and we don't give it another thought. And all of these orphaned 401ks are sitting out there. You really want to consolidate them. As you change jobs even, roll that old 401k into your new 401k if you want. Or if you're already working with an advisor, you can, house it there. But whatever you do, keep it simple so that your family don't have to really look for all of your assets.
Don't have to go on a treasure hunt, as you'd like to
Exactly.
call it.
Yes.
Also, if you have anything valuable, I imagine you want to let your children or somebody, not just
Yes.
accounts, but anything,
we have-
artwork or whatever you might have.
Absolutely. I was talking to a woman recently whose husband passed away prematurely, and he left her a stamp collection. She has no idea what to do with this,
Right.
And it's something that has value, but she doesn't know how it's illiquid. So these are things that we can help our loved ones with in advance, and it just makes all the difference, because honestly, the last thing you want to deal with when you're mourning over the loss of a loved one is to track down assets or to figure out, how do I even get into dad's laptop, right?
So
It's really,
give them the information.
Give them the
Don't be so
information.
secretive. As you said at the
Yeah.
onset, people don't like
Yeah.
to talk about it or
we
share
don't.
that.
It's we've made it this taboo topic, and it's really, it's just part of life.
And
Death-
should children ask?
Oh
is that
my
a good
gosh,
question?
yes. Yes. I mean, because at the end of the day, if your parents, it is a tough topic to broach, because parents are accustomed to being the caregiver role in the relationship. But maybe try asking for advice, or suggesting to your parents, hey, I heard a friend had a really tough time when their parent died because they didn't leave them with all of this information. Could you maybe share some of this with me? It's okay. You don't have to put it all into one big
Right. You
conversation.
don't have to tell me what you're worth. Just
It
give me a
doesn't-
little bit of information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Leave me a list somewhere in a safe. Make sure that you have your documents, your power of attorney, and your will, and these things, and let your heirs know where they are and where they can look for them.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank
Some really
you.
great information. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll look at what you can do with all of that stuff that may be in your home and how to organize it.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is David Martin with Martin CFS, a moving company that can help you to figure out what to do with all of your belongings. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know this is a really tough area for people. You get emotionally attached to things you may have, to a home. How do you start? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think starting early is definitely the key. Start thinking about it right now. Is there things that I don't need in my home? Is there things that I can donate? Is there things that I can give to my children or friends, people close to you as well?
Yeah, and if you're about to maybe downsize, where do you start? It can be overwhelming, can it?
Most definitely can be. So obviously first choosing what do we really need? Things that we're going to keep as we move to our new location. And then from there, if we have a larger estate, do we want to have a public auction and sell everything so we're done? It's including the house. That's an option. There's also people out there that would just buy the entire estate as is after you move out what you want. And then obviously you can always look for help from professionals to get to that point of downsizing.
Yeah, and how can they help you?
So everything from beginning, making sure you have your will in place, making sure your medical papers, your passports, any records like that you need to keep track of are taken care of in a safe place. From the layout to your new location, the packing, the actual moving, the sale of the house. Obviously, there's so many things that go into this, and there's definitely help out there, professional help.
Yeah, and they might not have that same emotional attachment to your things that you do, I would imagine.
For sure, and it'll help you work through that as well. There's going to be pieces that family members are going to want. There's always been special, maybe to just one child that wasn't to the other, and so working through those things early on is definitely key.
And you mentioned children. How should you discuss this with your children? I know you told me earlier you had a conversation with your children, and you're pretty young.
Yeah, I'm 47, and I had a conversation with my children just as what life looked like if I pass away. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, what does life look like for each one of you? And I think that's important to have those conversations early, as difficult as they can be and silly as they may seem to some of your younger children. The things that we need to be thinking about early.
How did that go? And what was their reaction?
Interesting. Older children, I think, took it a little more seriously, and we talked about it more afterwards. And I kind of questioned some of the younger children, and they really didn't. I don't think they really thought about it that deep. Like, that's not going to happen. So it's, it wasn't as close to them, that conversation.
I guess you find a lot of people have a lot of things, as you mentioned, things you might not need or that you've hung on to.
Yeah, most of it. That's hard to make those decisions. It really is. But you have to get there. And the sooner you start, the sooner you can start weeding out the things you don't need, then it'll be easier. Like, all right, we just still have these couple things that we still need to work through.
Do you think there's one area where you can start? I guess I know if I think about my house and maybe moving, it seems so overwhelming.
It really is. I mean, I think it's pretty easy though to like, all right, let me take a deep breath on a Saturday and walk through my house and really look at, is there furniture here that we just never use? Is there things in my closet that I never use? Is there china that we never use and we just have it for show or don't really need it? So, I think you'll be surprised as you walk through your home and really just open up every closet, look under your bed. You're going to see things that I really don't need this anymore. And
I guess the less you have when you do have to move yourself, or if somebody else has to move everything out, it's a lot easier.
Most definitely, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for WGAL 8 in Focus. For all of us at WGAL, I'm Susan Shapiro. And join us again next Saturday night at 7 o'clock for WGAL 8 in Focus, right after NBC Nightly News. And you can watch each episode of In Focus, plus WGAL's latest newscasts, original programming, and more. Just download the Very Local app and stream for free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV.